So to kind of summarize, we want to keep the soil covered with growing plants and fertilize the plants for optimal photosynthesis. Now this is really all you have to do. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? But there's a lot of details in this. And here's the big overarching detail. All this goes out the window if we can't afford to do it. We have to be able to monetize these growing plants in order to do this system. So that's the part that we have to work with is how far, what can we do to move forward and still pay for it at the same time. And that's where I think we really need to think outside the box a bit, particularly as dairy farmers. There's more options that, say, dairy farmers have than most farmers do, because they have different plant communities that can be used as forages. They have more planting opportunities, more harvest opportunities. That in itself can be a problem because we all only have so much time. How many different planting opportunities and harvesting opportunities can we take advantage of before it becomes impossible to manage? Just to throw out some ideas, and I'm going to say it works on every farm, but one thing that I have seen working on several farms I'd work with, and I think it would work more places if people would take a look at it, is back off on the acres of corn silage and replace them with more winter annual, summer annuals, shorter season crops that can intermess with each other. Maybe reserve the corn more as a grain crop with kind of an open tail end. You may not really get a good cover crop established, but it's on fewer acres, so you can still make whole farm progress. I don't have anything against corn silage except for the management perspective. I see that some of these farms are able to manage better by doing a really good job with more perennial forages and more intermesh summer and winter annuals, shorter season summer annuals like your Sudan grass, that type of thing, rather than so much corn silage. So that's just an idea I'll throw out. You can think about it. And you remember, corn is a soil building crop if you can keep it healthy. But the problem with corn is, because of the time you plant it, time you harvest it, whether you can get it in your system without leaving a big hole in your system it can be detrimental. Now, from a whole farm health perspective, this would be the ideal. Perennial forages, polyculture, but to be economically viable, this crop has got to have a fat content of, I would say, above 5% to be able to produce enough beef per acre, enough milk per acre, enough milk per animal. That can be a key as well, actually keeping the flesh on an animal in a high producing dairy setting and producing enough milk to be economically viable. We have to get the energy of this crop way above average for it to work in those situations. Most of us are not at that point. Even on my own personal farm, I'm not at that point yet. This photo comes off of my farm. I know this forage is running around 3.5% fat. It's better than average, but it's not good enough yet. And these beef animals are doing well, but this forage would not produce 70 pounds of milk on a high producing dairy cow and keep the flesh on. That's really my goal, is to get to that point, although I'm not a dairy farmer, because I know that's where it's only at that point that a perennial crop becomes economically viable for many of us. I know one of the things I think is a problem is, I don't know if any of you have heard of Sarah Flack. She's a grazing consultant from Vermont. In her work, she's compiled some data that shows that the grazing dairies, the grass-fed only dairies, typically are running it takes them about 6 or 7 acres per cow to keep the operation going. Well, to me, I don't think that, yeah, it's okay, it's paying their bills, it's working for them, but from a long-term, big picture perspective, that doesn't work. Because no way one cow can can keep that system going using that many acres per cow. Somewhere between 1.5 and 2 acres is a better point to be at. And But to get there, you know, we understand how to get there. It's just a matter of putting the system together and getting paid well enough to keep it going. And to do that, most of us are going to have to use annual crops. We've got to have annuals for the energy. The trick is to be able to use those annuals to build to where we want to go and not just run in place or fall behind like so much of agriculture has been doing for the past, well, really ever since this country was settled, the bulk of it. So, well, how I'm doing, well, it looks like I'm, yeah, pretty much on time.
So you're saying that in order to raise your energy, annuals are going to help do that?
Annuals is where we can get enough energy to meet our animals' needs, but because we can't get it off of moderate quality grass.
But we want to build really high quality grass.
You want to build high. This is where everybody should be wanting to go, because this would be the ultimate. If this was 5 or 6% fat forage, it would be the ultimate of profitability. It would be the ultimate from an ecological standpoint, economical standpoint, and it's the easiest thing in the world to manage. But we have to get there first. And I've been on farms that have gotten there. I know where I can take you to some that have gotten there, and I'm going there myself. I mean, I'm making progress, but I'm not there yet. And most of you here in this room are not there yet, so it's how we're going to get there.
So what are you going to do to get there?
Exactly. We have to manage annuals to build that. And the key, coming back to my point about photosynthesis and biomass, more sugar production is the key. More sugar, more months of the year is what takes us there.
Okay, but then there's been the talk of you don't want to be constantly tilling, so you're no tilling these annuals, or are you putting annuals in, interseeding annuals with your perennials? Or?
Well, here's the thing about tillage. Tillage is a negative, but if you can till to establish a crop, and by doing so get more sugar out of that crop than a no-till, at some point that tillage ceases to be a negative. And that's going to change with different crops and different soil types. As much as possible you should no-till, but sometimes you're not going to be able to no-till a great crop in, particularly starting out where you're starting, if your soil is too cold, and some crops are just not going to establish well in no-till, then a reasonable tillage, provided it's not on too steep a slope and an erosion hazard, more sugar production is going to move you further down the road than trying to no-till it.
You keep talking about percent of fat in the forage.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at my forage samples, I don't see a line that says percent fat. I mean, where do you see that? How do you get that number on the forage sample?
You just have to ask for it. Most of the forage samples I see do have the crude fat. There's a few of them that do not. You just have to pick the right sample test that you ask for.